for its female star, was lucky enough to have one of the loveliest and most attractive and talented ladies to come from Broadway to films in the early 40s. She refuses to believe that much time has gone by since then, and I don't either, because I was enjoying Tree Grows in Brooklyn and Claudia and The Gentleman's Agreement. And then in 1957, she began to play somewhat more mature roles, and she is our guest, Miss Dorothy McGuire. Welcome.
Thank you, Tom.
So nice to have you with us. And of course, I've mentioned that you did 3 movies, and we'll talk about the other 2, but I think perhaps we could talk about your guest as well.
Yes.
Would you tell us whom you brought along today?
I brought along Marco Polo because I felt that Old Yeller sent him to me. Several of my other dogs had passed, and my daughter, Topos Rope, Garrett, who's very involved with the Amanda Foundation, suggested I go down and get a dog. And I met and fell in love with Marco Polo.
Well, he certainly is photogenic, as you can see from the monitor there. He may be the star of the next Disney movie if anybody from out there is smart enough to be watching. Yeah. Really, and of course, the amazing thing is he does look a great deal like Old Yeller in our movie.
Well,
same smile, I think.
The same smile.
Yeah.
And also, he's very protective, and well, he has that magic.
Well, we'll talk about the Amanda Foundation and a lot of things, and about your career too. I wasn't just making up an introduction as I went along, Dorothy, and I'm so thrilled to have you here because I have truly enjoyed you ever since your very first movie, Claudia, and I know that a great many of our viewers, particularly these days, since on cable, so many of those wonderful old movies are seen.
Yes.
And Bob Dorian, who does them on the American Movie Classics, kind of does what I do, except he doesn't have to have commercials, and we do. That pays the bills. But I hope that you won't mind if we talk about both careers, now and then. Is that all right with you?
That's all right.
Excellent. Now, you'd never done a Disney movie before in '57. Had you met Walt Disney before? No,
I had not. I met him when we were filming. I did 3. I did Old Yeller, Swiss Family, and Swiss Family Robinson, I should say, and Summer Magic, yes, with Haley.
But did he come on the set, or were you just...
No, I was taken to his office and introduced to him, and he was a very comfortable human being, and as we all know, he was way ahead of his time, and just had that understanding for his fellow human beings.
And about that time, he was a very busy fellow because Disneyland was just happening as well.
Right.
All right, well, let's go back to 1957. You, who watch our show regularly, remember that we had Fess Parker on the last time we showed it. And much to my chagrin, I hadn't seen Old Yeller in such a long time. I'd forgotten that Fess comes and goes. He's in the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes. But in the rest of it, we have Tommy Kirk, and we have Kevin Corcoran, and we have Beverly Washburn, and Chuck Connors, and Jeff York, and a great-looking dog, and a wonderful lady who is our leading lady and our guest today. So, without further ado, as they say on smart television shows, it's time to watch Old Yeller. Old Yeller, Old Yeller, Old Yeller. Our movie, in case you joined us late, is Old Yeller, but our guest is not Old Yeller. This is old or young Marco Polo. We're not quite sure of his age because he was acquired from the Amanda Foundation by our real guest, Miss Dorothy McGuire, the female star of Old Yeller. Dorothy, as we were driving to the studio today, I asked you to write down a couple of names about people that you might like to be inquired about.
Yeah.
And you wrote Robert Stevenson and Rudy Weatherwax. Maybe I should ask you about Mr. Stevenson first.
Oh, Robert Stevenson,
the director,
yes, was our director, and he had a splendid reputation in Hollywood, and we were very lucky to have. He insisted that we have a real relationship between the actors, you see, and of course that was Tommy Kirk and Kevin Corcoran, and Fess Parker, etc., etc. And he insisted on realism, naturalness, and that came easily for
And of course, when you were shooting the movie, and of course it's no secret because everybody knows how movies are made now, it used to be sort of a secret, but a lot of the reactions you do had to be to things that you weren't actually seeing at the moment, which were put in later.
That's right. And we were on location and out of sequence. I don't know whether audiences understand about that, but they may think that the story is filmed from beginning to end, and that's not the way it is. You go with the location and the weather. Oh, and speaking of weather, I have to tell you about famous Mr. Weatherwax.
Yes, Rudy Weatherwax.
That's right. He found Spike, which was the real name of the dog.
Oh, Old Yeller's real name is Spike.
Yes, and as I understand it, he found him in a shelter and rescued him, and because he was intrigued by how he looked and something about his intelligence. And, of course, as we have found out and discovered, animals are intelligent.
Well, we just saw the scene, too, with a very intelligent cow named Rose, who Old Yeller aided Tommy Kirk in milking. Those people who actually work with animals on the set are called wranglers, I believe.
Yes.
So I presume Rose had her own wrangler, but Rudy Weatherwax was in charge of Old Yeller.
Yes.
All right, we've met, let's see, we've met Jeff York, the gruff father of little Beverly Washburn. In fact, you and Beverly Washburn are the only ladies in the whole movie. And we're about to meet Chuck Connors, who does a very nice job in our film as well. So, back, shall we get to Old Yeller? And we're going to talk about Dorothy McGuire at Fox and other studios, too. Also, Friendly Persuasion, which was made just before ours. But now back to Old Yeller. Our movie is Old Yeller, and our guest Dorothy McGuire has just led the litter away bearing Old Yeller, who's been scratched up a bit, and young Arliss is attending to him, and Travis is on the mule. Travis isn't in such great shape either. Dorothy, your career at the Disney Studios, which began in '57, followed by about 15 years, one of the lovely stories of Broadway to Hollywood, when you were discovered by David O. Selznick and brought to be in Claudia, but he didn't make the movie.
No, that's quite certain. That's quite true. My contract was split between 20th Century Fox and RKO.
And this movie, we're going to show a still from Claudia now, shows you with Robert Young of Father Knows Best and Dr. Welby, for those who came along later.
Yes, yes.
Had you worked with him before?
No, I'd never had. I did Claudia on Broadway, and that part was played by Donald Cook, who was also in film, had been in film.
Right.
And the mother was Frances Starr, and in film it was played by Ina Claire, who was very famous.
And then you were then at Fox, and they were lucky enough to have you, and they put you then into this picture, which was A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. Betty Smith had a big bestseller about 1942 or 3.
Yes, indeed. That still is a classic.
And that's in the middle is Aunt Sissy. That's Joan Blondell.
Yes.
And then the two kids, that's Peggy Ann Garner on the left and little Teddy Donaldson up on the right.
Oh, you are
Well, I've been rehearsing, and of course you were there, so you know, but I just have to show you how smart I am.
Yes.
Your contract was actually at 2 studios. Then.
Yes. Well, I don't know. It's possible that David had my contract, but it was split between the 2 studios. I can't tell you about the financial.
That's all right. I don't need to know that. In fact, I think Gregory Peck, when we had him on with 12 O'Clock High, told him that he was working for several studios at once, too.
Yes.
Then this is the one that everybody remembers because it was the first movie about racial prejudice, and they could actually say that Jewish people were being discriminated against, Gentleman's Agreement. Tell me about working on that one. Do you have happy memories of working on that?
Very, yes. Well, Greg and I came from theater about the same time.
That's right.
Though I didn't know him before I came out here, but he also was under contract to David. And Elia Kazan, who is one of the most talented directors, was a director. He had directed Tree Grows in Brooklyn.
Which was his first.
Yes, that was his first. And a very famous cameraman named Leon Shamroy was the director who was on both films, I believe, and he guided Kazan in the making of Tree. That was Kazan's first picture, and that's how he learned the process of filmmaking, Kazan. But story-wise, we were all comfortable with each other. And story-wise, it was, I guess, a trendsetter.
It certainly was.
And broke new ground. And I remember we did a one-day's filming in Connecticut. I can't remember whose famous house it was. And 20th flew us all east for one day's filming in this rather elegant house. I can't remember the scene or anything about it, but I do remember that Gregory was interviewed, and they asked him what the picture was about, and he told them that it was about anti-Semitism and prejudice, etc., etc. And in the next day in the paper it said, the picture is about real estate.
Oh, for heaven's sake, is that amazing? Oh.
Well, it was about Jewish people
Sure.
moving into a...
But they didn't mention the racial business about that. Well, of course, those times, thank heaven, have certainly changed in 40 years.
Yes.
And then, of course, you and Gregory Peck and some other folks were involved with the La Jolla Playhouse, which is still, in its new guise, going so beautifully.
Yes.
All right, well, we've got to get back to 1957, but I'm having such a good time at Fox in the early 40s, it's hard to get back. We will, however, talk later about Friendly Persuasion, which was done for William Wyler and Samuel Goldwyn, I believe.
Right.
Anyway, now back to 1957, Old Yeller, and more from Walt Disney.
This is KTLA, Channel 5, Tribune Broadcasting in Los Angeles.
Our movie for a happy Sunday afternoon is Old Yeller, but this still, featuring our guest, Dorothy McGuire, is from the movie she made previous, just immediately before our movie, Friendly Persuasion. And Dorothy, you always worked with such tall people. I mean, this is Anthony Perkins, who played your son, for heaven's sake, and even he is tall. Then you had Gary Cooper, and you had Gregory Peck, and Fess Parker in our movie.
I was lucky.
Yes, I guess you were at that. Now, the Friendly Persuasion, which we have shown on this stage as well and loved a great deal, did lead, they say, to your playing mothers and more mature ladies. Do you, people who go to the Amundsen and people who go to the theater at all have seen you recently. Do you prefer one medium over another? They always ask that of movie stars, so why don't I ask you?
Yes, they ask that. Actually, they're very different. I love theater because you get an immediate reaction from your audience, and they feed into you energy, and you are, you know, thinking and feeling and telling a story to them. So, yes, I like that very much indeed. Film, on the other hand, can almost get inside a person, into, if the person is really prepared, into the thinking and into the feeling. When you're in the theater, of course, you have a distance between you and the audience. But when you're on film, if the story is good, the camera can be, you know, right inside of you.
Now, you have a television film coming up, which I presume will contain some of those qualities, with George Grizzard and Patricia Neal and Stephanie Zimbalist. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
It's a Hallmark production, and it may, I'm not sure when it's going to be shown. It could be March or April. Mm-hmm. And it stars Stephanie Zimbalist, and it's called Caroline with a question mark. And and Dorothea Petrie is the producer, and Joe Sargent is the director.
Good.
It was filmed in Atlanta, and it's an interesting story.
We'll look for it. Mm-hmm. All right, let's get back now, because as you can see, it's getting very, very dicey with the hydrophobia and Old Yeller and what's going to happen. And will the boys be able to, well, you watch, and if you want to snivel up a little bit, that's all right, too. We may be doing that here. Back now to Old Yeller.
Best doggone dog in the West.
Well, it would make a wonderful Hollywood story if I could tell you that this is the actual dog that was in little Kevin Corcoran's arms, but it's not true. Actually, it's Marco Polo, and if you want to know Dorothy McGuire's home phone number, it's right there on the label. So if you see Marco Polo running along, which you won't, Dorothy, I can't thank you enough for coming down.
What a pleasure it's been.
I've so wanted to meet you, and
much.
I know our viewers have, absolutely.
Thank you.
Bless your heart, and thank you for coming. We love the movie, and we loved having you with us, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.